So we've got a few more people just joining us, but we'll just kick off now and welcome everyone to our best practice session today on implementing early talent development and diversity. It's great to have you all here today. So we're really excited to have so many of you joining us. This session follows on from the annual apprenticeship conference that Kirsty Donnelly, our CEO, chaired, discussing how to attract and progress and retain and nurture apprentices to build a sense of belonging and the importance of developing a talent pipeline. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in today's session, and we've got some great speakers and breakout sessions for you all to participate in. So thank you all for joining. So I'll do some introductions initially and introduce myself, who will be chairing and facilitating this session today. So my name is Charmaine Bouchot, and I've worked at City and Guilds for a number of years, 20 plus years. And my role within City and Guilds is I'm a category and propositions manager, and I develop our products and services. But I'm also chair of our racial equality community support group that we set up about 12 months ago. So I'll be facilitating today's session. And I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Julia Beener from the Foundation to introduce herself. Hi, Julia.
Hello, hi, sorry. Hi, no, just a really quick word from us at the City and Guilds Foundation. We're really delighted to support this event today as part of our mission to break down barriers to learning and employment. And the foundation also celebrates that. And I'm so pleased today to see so many of our Princess Royal Training Awards alumni, members joining this event. That's brilliant. And just about we were really, really pleased with the success of our Inclusion Diversity series, which I know some of you have attended in the summer, where 600 people attended it, and we had 250 people pledging their support to building equity in their organizations. So I'm really delighted to see the continued commitment of employers today. And that was it from me. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, Julia. So before we get into the meat of the session today, let's just take a look at the agenda. So we've had the welcome and introductions from myself and Julia. Next up, we're going to hear from colleagues within City and Guilds sharing best practice when recruiting and retaining diverse early talent. So we have Abbas Jaffer, who is our Resourcing and Talent Development Director at City and Guilds. And we also have Tiana Locker, who's our Early and Entry Talent Manager. So we'll be hearing from them shortly. And then we are really pleased to have Kashi Charge, who is the Apprenticeship Programme Leader from IBM in the UK, join us to talk about the apprenticeship programme that they've developed, and also that IBM have received 4 Princess Royal Training Awards since 2016. So definitely lots to learn from Kash there as well. And then what we're going to be doing following that session, we will break into 2 groups, so virtual discussion groups, where we'll talk about the sort of key actions that we need to take to increase early talent diversity and how that can add a value to the core business. So we'll have about sort of 25-30 minutes in those discussion groups. And then following that, we'll take some feedback from you all, which would be great, and answer any questions and share insights, and then move into close. So just from an admin perspective, it would be great if you could pop any questions that you have as we go through today's session just in the chat box, and my colleague Paula Shue will pick those questions up. So thank you all, and I think we've got people still joining us, and we are recording the session as well for colleagues, so thank you very much. So I'm going to hand over now to Abbas and Tiana, who are going to share best practice when recruiting and retaining diverse entry talent. Thank you both.
Thanks, Charmaine. Well, welcome everyone. Just to set a little bit of context before I hand over to Tiana, when focused on diversity recruitment, just sorry, by way of intro and background, I've been with City and Guilds about 6 months. in role, but have held this role in a number of other organizations. So I've come more from commercial, financial services, legal, that sort of sector. So I've sort of been looking at diversity and inclusion under several different lenses through my career. The focus here with the entry-level talent, it is only one of several areas that we have been focused on. So when we look at diversity recruitment, we're really looking at it across a number of tranches and tiers, from leadership hiring and what we do to best attract high caliber diverse talent, through to middle management and professional. But our pipeline and really a major focus for growth is at the entry level. Before pushing diversity hiring, it is important to say that inclusion needs to be quite firmly embedded in the organization. So any organization that's entering this journey, they need to start focusing on looking at the culture and looking at a culture of inclusion before they start hiring diverse talent, because what one obviously supports the other. So the culture needs to be one that is inclusive and absolutely gets the business case and the rationale behind why diverse talent matters. So with that in mind and that in place at City and Guilds, a major area of focus was entry and early talent, and Tiana in my team has been leading that. So I'm going to hand over to Tiana to talk us through what we've been doing. Thanks, Tiana.
Perfect, thank you. So just before I get started, I'll just introduce myself quickly. So I'm Tiana. I've actually worked at City and Guilds for around about 8 or 9 years now, and I first joined the organisation as an apprentice myself, and I've had the great opportunity to develop and grow in my role. I started off in our qualifications part of the business, and I've since moved into HR, where I am responsible for looking after, as Abbas has said, our early and entry talent, with a particular focus on things like work experience internships, and now our group apprenticeship program, and driving forward our strategy for those programs. Thanks, Charmaine. Sorry, if we could just skip to the next slide. So the first thing that I want to do is really just set some context around why early talent with a specific focus on diversity is so important to us at City and Guilds. So the first thing that I would say is that by being strategic in our approach, it really does enable us to better support our purpose, which is really about supporting people into their first job, developing on the job and progressing on to their next job. And also in turn, it enabled us to better support our future strategy, making sure we have the right skills that we need internally, and then also the culture of our workforce for the future. And that's why early talent really plays a big role in that particular space. Through our early talent programs, we're really looking to engage with a diverse talent pool of individuals, so we can really develop their skills, their organisational awareness, and create a really clear talent pipeline that enables us to have a diverse talent pool who is able to kind of develop and grow within our organisation. So it's a really big part of our kind of grow your own strategy. Our strategy really enables us to kind of build the right knowledge, skills and behaviours that we want to drive our culture forward in the future. It helps us to really lead by example, and as an organisation, we talk to all of our customers about some of the great products and services that we have, and for us it's about identifying how we can really lead by example and drink our own champagne, and it really helps us to increase brand awareness and start enabling us to tap into diverse talent who might not have previously seen us as an employer of choice. The last thing that I would say is that it's really supporting us to think about workforce planning by identifying some of the skills and capability gaps that we have in our own organisation. Thanks, Charmaine. So this slide really talks to how we do it and how we create a talent pipeline through our early careers programs. So we start off by really thinking about how we can best engage with people. If we think about the Gatsby benchmark, it talks about young people in particular needing to have a number of different encounters with employers to support them to be successful in their future careers. So this is what we've tried to do. We've tried to kind of replicate that and make sure that people joining our organisation have a number of different opportunities to engage with us over a number of years. So they start to understand who we are and what our brand is. I think that's really important when trying to tap into a diverse candidate pool. So the first thing that we do is we have open days, which are really about us as an organisation, raising awareness of our opportunities that people could be applying for, but also giving something back. So sharing interview techniques and employability skills so they can start to think about what's important when they are applying for roles. We then encourage people to then apply for work experience programs, which are typically 1 to 2 weeks long, and they're more focused on them building really important awareness around softer skills and the skills that they have that are transferable into the workplace. We then have longer programs that are kind of like placements that are anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months. And these are the most important programs for us because we have enough time to help them to build workplace confidence and competence so that when they go on to their future applications and they want to apply for roles, hopefully with us internally, they're able to talk about particular experiences that they've had and how they've been able to demonstrate really core skills that are important to us as an employer. We then try and feed that internship program or our Kickstart placements into our apprenticeship and entry-level roles. So we can really see those people progress from just learning about us as an employer and becoming our workforce. And then we really focus on continued career progression. So once somebody joins us on any of those interventions, how do we retain them and make sure they're able to grow in their role with us at the group? So this is just a really quick overview of what we're doing in terms of our apprenticeship program and what it looks like. So we've broken our apprenticeship program into 3 main work streams, so it's really clear who all of our programs are for and how we like to run them. Our first program is what we would call our Early Start program, which is specifically designed to support our inclusion diversity strategy and linking directly in with that early talent pipeline, which I've just spoken about. So it's really important for us that we focus on social mobility and inclusion diversity because you want to have a really great talent pool of people that join us. So we want to break down barriers by inviting people in for all of those different interventions. And at the end of those final interventions, we then encourage them to apply for our centrally funded apprenticeship program. And that's really important for us because we every year commit to having a minimum of 6 apprentices who are funded by our exec so that we can start people on their journey as an apprentice to start their career. And hopefully what we will do is find opportunities at the end of their program internally with us and actually partner with external organisations where they might want to see their career go in a completely different direction. Our second program is what we call our Smart Start program, which is really how we put apprenticeships at the heart of our entry-level vacancies. So we've made a really clear commitment that we're going to have 37% of all of our entry-level roles become apprenticeships. And that's really important for us because that's us creating a really great learning environment internally for all of our employees. And at the end of their apprenticeship program, they automatically become internal employees and they continue their career with us within the group. And then our third work stream is focused on our existing workforce. So we have identified the core skills that we know we need for our future of our organisation. And we've identified a number of apprenticeship standards which link to those skills that we know that we need. And we're advertising the opportunity to our employees be able to put themselves forward to take one of those apprenticeship standards to support their development, but then also build those gaps that we know we have already within our organisation. And then this slide really talks to the way that we run our programme and what's most important to us. So one of the things that we always like to do is make sure that we have a group first approach. And what that means to us is always exploring our internal capabilities, our products and services, to make sure that we're really tapping into that, to make sure we're amplifying our early talent programs as much as possible, which is a great opportunity for us to showcase the value of all of our different products and services which we offer externally. It's also a really great opportunity for us to learn how our products and services work in practice so that we can continue to develop them. So in terms of that, what that really looks like is for apprenticeship training delivery, we work with our technical training organisation to make sure that we use them as our preferred training provider, which is really great because we know that they are really experienced in this industry, and where we have a particular apprenticeship standard that doesn't quite work for us, or they don't deliver, they can advise us on other providers that can deliver it to a really high standard. In terms of employability skills and development, we always make sure that we explore what we have internally in terms of our skills credentialing business, and we make sure that we embed any products and services internally. So if you think about Kickstart placements, one of the things that we've been really making sure that we do is embed qualifications that we already offer, so that anybody coming on that program is able to really develop themselves whilst they're with us. And then the last thing that we do is look at existing internal programs. So we have a number of learning and development programs that we run internally, and we really tap into those so that our apprentices have the best experience whilst they're with us, and they almost get a bit of a kickstart in terms of their career journey whilst they're with us in the organisation. And so I'll just hand over to Abbas, who will talk in more detail about the recruitment process and how we really attract and select our candidates.
Great, thank you. Don't know whether you can hear any background noise. Apologies if you can. There is some building work going on behind me now. But at a very high level, in terms of attraction, where we've been focused is on targeted communities and looking at specific locations where we can build ongoing relationships and our employer brand. And when we talk about communities, we're looking at schools, we're looking at specifically areas that are of high diverse talent, specific cities and the like. So it is a very targeted focus for the diversity pool when we're trying to attract. When we look at selection, we want to make sure we are consistent and objective. So whilst we're looking to attract diverse talent, we want to make sure that the process we put all our apprentices and employees or applicants through are consistent and the same, depending on the role and the level. So we haven't created an apprenticeship standard to attract diversity. We've created an apprenticeship standard full stop, and diverse talent will be part of that. We use a number of tools, including a resourcing champion, which is a specific attendee on the recruitment panel, on the interview panel, that actually will focus on making sure there is A, diverse representation of applicants, and B, that the process that's run is consistent and objective. And then really the last piece I'd cover, and I'm happy to talk in more detail later on in the Q&A, is on career progression and how we focused on that in the organization in terms of internal talent generally, internal diverse talent as part of that, and looking at things like succession planning and talent grids from the point of entry, so we can help people career map and career path up. Those are just 3 areas in our recruitment process for diverse talent that I think has supported us in accessing and hiring the talent we require. I'll stop there and pass back.
That's great. Thank you so much, Abbas and Tiana. And I just given us an opportunity really just to sort of reflect and just to see if anybody's got any questions that they have for either Abbas and Tiana they'd like to raise at this point before we move on.
So hi everybody, I'm just looking in the chat now. Nice to see so many people here today. So I can't see any questions in the chat so far. So either people are waiting to, share their insight in the breakouts, or whether anyone wants to pop a question in before we move on. So somebody, Mike, hi Mike, thanks for your question. He's asked, interested to know, where do we source our talent from? Are they the usual job boards or partnerships? So Abbas, Tiana, I don't know whether you want to pick up that one.
Tiana, do you want to just talk about the targeted approach?
Yeah. So we've actually been doing a lot of work on this, probably pre-COVID. We had an internship program which was specifically focused on supporting young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and we did a lot of research to identify a number of different partners that support people from either disadvantaged background or who met the types of criteria in terms of the people we're trying to attract. One of the kind of key things that I would say is, if you think about the indices of social deprivation, there were a number of things that you can tailor your kind of attractions approach to make sure you're finding the right people. So one of the key things that we did was actually target schools who had really high percentage of free school meals, for example. And that was one of the things that's really supported us to build really great relationships with a number of schools in the areas where we have a number of different offices, to get their students to constantly be thinking about our organisation as an employer of choice, because we do go in and we do various talks with them, but then also have them in for work experience quite frequently.
Thanks, Tiana. Thank you. Is there another question popped in, Paula, I think?
No, that's all for now. So yeah, I think we can carry on.
No problem. Well, thank you both. And obviously you're both going to be in the breakout sessions to answer any more questions and to be part of the richer discussion. So thank you. So we're going to move on now. So welcome. I'm going to just introduce Kashif Taj, who is the Apprenticeship Programme Leader at IBM in the UK. We are so pleased to have you with us today, and we'll be having a conversation really about the work that IBM are doing, and particularly talking about their professionals programme as well. So I'm going to stop sharing screens, and welcome, Kash.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's really great to be here as Princess Training Awards alumni as well, and also great to talk about the IBM Apprenticeship Programme overall. And great to speak to you, Charmaine.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. So we're going to get into it. So it's going to be a bit of a conversation, and I've got a few questions that I'm going to ask. And the first one that I'm going to start with really is, could you talk a little bit more about the history that IBM have in supporting diversity and inclusion?
Right. Okay. Well, a really long list. So this is where I'm going to need my notes to go through. But just to give you some context, IBM operates across 170 countries, and we have about 350,000 what we call IBMers. They're not called employees. And you can imagine there's going to be a bit of this because we're an American company. So just by the very nature of how IBM operates on our markets, we are very diverse. So I'm going to start from the top, and I'm just going to highlight some of the key things. As I said, this is a very long list, so I'm just going to highlight just the top things. So let's start back in 1899. Okay, so where IBM hired first women employees and the first Black employees. 1914, IBM hired its first disabled employee, 76 years prior to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. 1935, women hired as system service professionals promised women for equal pay for equal work. 1943, Ruth Leach named IBM's first female executive. 1953, again, IBM implemented corporate policy letter number 4. And that was 11 years prior to the passage of the Civil Rights Act. And that stated its commitment to hire people regardless of race, color, and creed. 1984, IBM expanded its global diversity and non-discrimination policy to include sexual orientation. 2012, IBM hired its first female chairman and CEO, Ginny Rometty. 2017, very recently, IBM takes a stand in the US to fight the bathroom bills targeting transgender people in North Carolina and Texas. April 2020, IBM hires its first IBM CEO from an ethnic background, Arvind Krishna. That's some of the stuff that IBM has been responsible for and is forward thinking in the area of diversity and inclusion.
Now that's a really impressive long list. Thank you for that, and quite sort of progressive. And so, why is it important to IBM then?
I think the driver here is around our IBM values. So innovation that matters, putting the client first, trust and personal responsibility in all relationships. And I think this does reflect diversity and inclusion. Having diversity of thought, having people from lots of different backgrounds, that's what drives innovation. IBM is an innovative company. We have, in over consecutive years, the most patents registered, for example. So it shows around our innovation, and it's because we're diverse in terms of putting the client first. We're reflective of our client base, and we need to have a diverse employee base to be able to do that. Trust and personal responsibility in all relationships. You're going to build trust and personal responsibility when you work with people who are similar to yourselves in some ways, and you can make that connection on lots of different levels. And having a diverse workforce really helps with that situation. I also really want to highlight again, and apologies, I'm going to read again from my notes, but IBM corporate policy. I say this a lot because it is an large American company. Corporate policy 117 on diversity and inclusion. And this is what really highlights why diversity and inclusion is important. The employees of IBM represent a talented and diverse workforce. Achieving full potential of this diversity is a business priority that is fundamental to our competitive success. A key element in our workforce diversity programs is IBM's long-standing commitment to equal opportunity and an inclusive workplace. So what I'm really highlighting in here is that diversity and inclusion is really embedded in our corporate policy, and you can see the business drivers of why we want to do that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's really good to hear you talk about innovation and how you get innovation, client first approach. So everything you do, diversity and inclusion, has to be embedded around that, because otherwise you wouldn't get that trust and personal responsibility. You wouldn't get that competitive success, and that commitment coming through your corporate policy, is really, really, really good to hear and clear to hear. And when you talk about it, it makes absolute sense that you can't have it at one end and not the other end of the spectrum. So it's got to be across everything that you do, really. So how did this agenda then kind of lead into your early talent program or impact your early talent program?
So I think across our early talent program, so we hire graduates, apprentices, interns, we run a gap year scheme as well, and we also operate a movement to work program, which some of the attendees of the call might be aware of. If not, Google it. It's an amazing program about getting diverse talent into your organization. So early professional hires, it's a great way of increasing workforce diversity. It's something that the senior leaders in IBM ask us about all the time in terms of what we're doing, in terms of increasing diversity in our early professional hires, as part of our recruitment strategy. Our early professionals, especially our apprentices as well, they bring new energy, they bring different perspectives, they bring diverse thinking, and most importantly, they're ready and able to challenge existing ways of thinking, and they will challenge senior execs in terms of what they're doing. To give you a very recent example, we held an apprentice roundtable with our global business services, so our consulting arm of IBM, the UK and Ireland leader, Rahul Kalia, and we had our apprentices on there, and they asked him some really challenging questions and didn't really hold back. So there's that sense of fearlessness and growth mindset to be able to challenge and ask those kind of really interesting questions to our senior leaders.
Absolutely. And those are the questions that get you thinking. Those are the questions that kind of put a swerve ball in, that you think, I hadn't really thought about that, I hadn't considered that. And then the work that you do becomes richer because of it. But yeah, no, it's great to see. So what sort of best practice ideas then can you share with us all today in terms of successful recruitment and retention then in inclusion and diversity?
Yes, so there's a number of things. So in terms of attraction, what we do, and we're now in a virtual world, most of us, is we ask our early professionals, and we to get involved in our recruitment and attraction activity. So they'll be posting on LinkedIn, they will attend various school, college events with our third parties, because they are the best people to talk about our programs and tell potential candidates realistically what it's really like to be at IBM, what it's really like to do a role, and what the progression is like, rather than managers and more senior people. So we really put our early professionals at the forefront. And as I said, we use this as extracurricular activity. So for them, the buy-in is talking to people, but also increasing their skill sets, their presentation skills, etc., their communication skills, so they see it as a development opportunity. Get involved in various campaigns as well. So one that I can cite, a few years back is when, maybe a few of you as well, sitting there watching the X Factor when it was on, and the ads came up, and we had the government kind of Fire It Up apprenticeship campaign, and we had one of our apprentices, Chris Appichong, who is from a diverse background, in that format, along with apprentices from other organizations, in a 30-second ad. That was a real game changer for us, for Chris to be able to do that, because it showed, rest of the UK, that you can join an organization like IBM, and it's like, you're just like me. If I can do it, you can do it. And you can search for those ads on YouTube. They're all there, really, really good. Leaders that can be relatable. So increasingly at IBM, I've mentioned Arvind Krishna right at the top, and Ginny Rometty before him, and our leaders in the UK, increasingly coming from that diverse pool of talent, and now more relatable role models. And then in terms of retention, we have our business resource group. So we have our LGBT community, our BAME community, our persons with diverse ability. So we have lots of groups in IBM where individuals can join various communities, can celebrate things like International Women's Day, etc. And recently, an event that I attended, which I'd never seen before, was last year, was a talk about Ramadan. And we had two of our senior people being questioned by our early professionals about what's Ramadan like for them, what's the experience in working with clients and attending meetings, and then, did you talk about, oh, I have to go and break my fast and then come back and, continue with your meeting, and things like that. So things that are really coming to the forefront, and with, BLM as well, obviously, is all coming to it. But it's also about building that inclusive environment, and it's okay to be you at work. It's okay to talk about things that you want to talk about, and be asked questions, and be able to feel that, I can answer these questions. I feel comfortable. I feel okay to talk about, my culture, my background, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, you know, you were talking about that kind of sense, real sense of belonging. It's great to see that you've got those business resource groups, as we do within City and Guilds, to help people and support people coming in. And you talked about having the role models. So representation, we know, is key, that you can see people like yourselves, but particularly getting them involved in getting the early professionals involved in the recruitment, so that they can see people closer to their age group on their career journey. So no, it's really good to see. And I suppose the other side to this then is kind of, what obstacles have you faced along the way in trying to implement these strategies?
Yeah, so I don't want to paint a completely rosy picture, and I think that's not the right thing to do. We all hit various obstacles, and I think a couple of them that I can pick up on is just being mindful of the political issues and the political backdrop, and sometimes where you can feel that you are trying to be inclusive, sometimes you could be excluding as well, and just think like that. So to give you a very personal example, is I obviously lead the apprenticeship schemes across IBM in the UK, but I particularly don't chair or sponsor any diverse kind of groups. For example, the BAME community that we have within our early professional team, because I want to really be seen as a leader for everyone, regardless of background, and not championing anything in particular. Even though I may have a passion, I will talk about it if asked, and I get invited to certain things, but I won't lead on that. So that's where I want to kind of be shown as inclusive. And then just from a safeguarding and prevent perspective as well, you just want to make sure that when we're bringing in various speakers, or our early professionals or you see kind of various things that are being talked about, that we do have to be mindful of the political backdrop. And it's okay to talk about certain things and to express an opinion, but there might be political groups behind that, and we just want to be mindful of that from a safeguarding and prevent perspective. And then always linking back in terms of D&I strategies, linking back to the workplace and business value, and really asking yourself why is this important, why we're doing this. Yes, it's a really nice thing to do, and it's on trend at the moment, but there's business value behind this, and it's also important to keep track and your eye on the business value.
And I suppose just on that as well, you sort of touched on, yes, there's a lot of the kind of have to be mindful of the political landscape and your role within apprenticeships. And I suppose I'm just curious about, the why and everybody being on the journey, and how that has been for you, whether there have been any obstacles getting the buy-in from leaders and managers.
I think IBM as an organization, just I've described kind of the history and the heritage there, it hasn't been so difficult. But I think a real turning point, as I've mentioned, IBM is an American organization, and the situation with the US in terms of what's been happening over the last 12-18 months has really brought it to the forefront. And that it's good to talk about these things, that certain things aren't right that have gone on and are impacting individuals, and for managers to be mindful that for example if there is a terrorist attack or something like that, sometimes there is a backlash to individuals. And if we've got someone, for example, one of our early professionals who wears hijab and is on the tube and gets some racist abuse, for example, to be okay, there's limits to what we can do, but for that individual to feel open in the workplace, if they've just come in, experience that, are very upset, and you can take time out and have a conversation with your managers. This is what happened to me when I was coming to work, is kind of opening up other people within IBM, the middle managers, to what other people can be experiencing when they come from a diverse background.
Great, thank you for that. And I suppose I was wondering as well is what are the key elements that make your early professionals program a success really? What are the key things that you would say because of this, you know, we make it successful?
Yeah, so I think one of the first key things is matrix management. In foundation, the organization that I come from, you have a foundation manager, which is effectively like your career coach, and then you have your day-to-day manager that you work with, you know, in your job role. And having two managers is actually really, really helpful because it complements having a growth mindset and encouraging that for our early professionals, and also anticipating business needs and making sure that your early professional strategies are relevant to the business. Try new things and restlessly reinvent is how we've made it a success.
Lovely, that's great. And is there anything else that before we finish up, Cash, that you want to perhaps share with our group before we go into the breakout sessions? Anything that we haven't covered?
Oh, I think we've kind of covered so much there. So I'd be happy to move on if there's any questions that people have that you would like me to try and cover off.
No, that's been lovely. Thank you. Good conversation. I'm just going to bring Paula in because I'm sure there's a few questions.
Yeah, do you know that I really enjoyed that chat between you two, between the both of you. I thought, you know, it was so nice just to hear the flow of all of that insight coming through, Cash. So we do have a question for you. It's from Michelle, and she's asked you, do IBM have any metrics on diversity, or have you had any metrics on your diversity numbers?
So what I can tell you is, in terms of our apprenticeship scheme, when that started off in 2010, I think we were running one scheme, one pathway, and I don't think we had any females. So now what we aim for is at least kind of a 50% split. It works really well around our degree apprenticeship programs. And our consultancy type programs. For example, we run our junior management consultancy pathway because we are an employer provider. That's where it works really well. And in terms of our technical programs, digital and technology solutions degree apprenticeship, we've got a really good split there. I think it might be like a 40-60 split with male female. In terms of other metrics around diversity, officially we don't collect them because I don't think we are able to, but we do actively encourage individuals to document their you know, their diverse background on our HR systems, but we can't force them to.
Okay, and that's all the questions for now. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you so much for that. We're doing really well for time as well. Pretty impressive. Yeah, so now we're going to move into our breakout session now. So thank you. I'm just going to go into full screen for this. You just bear with. So just moving on. Thank you all. So now we're going to get to hear from you all and have a real deep discussion on everything that we've heard so far. And you're going to be split into two breakout groups. One of the groups is really going to focus on that attraction selection piece, and the second group will focus on career progression and retention. And if I could ask somebody in each group just to volunteer to provide some feedback, so 2 or 3 key things that have come out of your discussions and conversations about how it could add value to the business or actions that you want to take forward, just to feed that back. So in a moment, you'll be sent off into a breakout room. At the end of that session, we'll come back, take some sort of feedback from both of those groups with a volunteer providing that feedback. We've got about 20 to 25 minutes for this discussion. So thank you. To take a while, and we'll see you soon. Hi everyone, back in the main room. We got cut off a little bit. We were deep in.
Warren was in full flow, and then we all just got chucked back out. But time just really ran away with us. So yeah, I hope everyone had the same experience.
Yeah, and it'd be great actually. We can hear from a few people that didn't get to talk in the main session that we had as well. So I failed in my mission to nominate somebody to volunteer.
So did I.
I.
So did I. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, to be back from our group. Paula, because you were talking a lot about the kind of attraction selection piece, do you want to go first and just sort of feedback some key themes from your conversation? If anyone else from your group that you want to introduce to do the same would be great.
Yeah. So we had some really great input. So I'm just going to whiz through, what people sort of talked about, and then I will ask people who didn't get the chance to speak maybe to input as well. But Cash was from IBM was talking about this ladder of opportunity where encouraging gap year students to have a gap year at IBM. So the undergraduates can actually try before they decide to apply for a full-time role within IBM. So lots of innovative ideas there. The Movement to Work program, I think, is something that is worth exploring for those employees who haven't yet engaged. And the IBM program is called Ignite, and that's a really good way to build up your talent pool. Partnering with other organisations, we know that that's going to really help in the long run, because from chatting with Avanti, West Coast Rail, they actually work with lots of different primary schools that are located near some of their main train stations in order to really try and target those pupil premium students, free school meals, ESOL, where you will really get that richness in diversity. But actually that does take time and resources and a continuous commitment in order to go into those schools. So they do have champions that go into those schools that are located near to those railway stations. So again, some really innovative ideas there. What Avanti are trying to break through, and I would say Extract are the same, is that tradition of males entering those industries, especially for train drivers, etc. And also great insight with Dermalogica, who have obviously got a brilliant network with local colleges and training providers who go in and try to kind of encourage other types of students to think about a career in beauty. So that was just a very quick snapshot, and already I think Avanti were quite keen to learn from our own strategies that Tiana was talking around in terms of how to engage with returning mums, for example, and having those almost open days to encourage people to have a conversation about what it feels like to work in those industries in terms of understanding those those values. But I will ask anyone else in my group to maybe chip in as well with, I don't think we got the chance to speak with the National Crime Agency, so I don't know whether you want to share any insights, because we got cut off, unfortunately, and also Durham as well, the University of Durham. So if any of you guys would like to sort of add to that.
Hi, it's Mandeep from National Crime Agency. So for us, our kind of diversity and inclusion strategy has picked up quite recently over the last year. We've had a lot of things put in place, especially in the recruitment side, of like blind applications. So all our applications are anonymous up until interview stage. So that's been introduced. We've pre-COVID, we have been visiting. So we visited some universities. Some of the different teams within the agency have gone and visited colleges, universities. Myself in the recruitment team, we've gone to the actual national apprenticeship event that was held in Ascot. So we were there for 2 days. So even though they're not at the age where they can apply for our roles, but it was just getting our brand awareness out there, as a lot of people, especially when I joined back in 2015, I actually didn't know what the National Crime Agency was. So it's just getting our name out there, getting that brand awareness out there that, the National Crime Agency is there, and it's just trying to kind of continue doing that. But hopefully now with COVID hopefully getting back to normal, we'll be able to kind of visit more university schools, which we're using LinkedIn a lot as well now for certain roles. So it's kind of an ongoing kind of thing we have in the agency at the moment.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really great. I don't know whether Deborah, do you want to chip in or anything?
Nothing really to add, no, to be honest. As I mentioned in my introduction, I'm kind of more involved with the succession planning and things side of things, so career progression, development roles, digital skills, career pathways, and competency mapping and things like that. So I guess it's just kind of, it's nice to hear people's objectives really, and kind of
you know, I am quite new to the role. So yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you.
Great. So I'll hand back to you, Charmaine, for group 2.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. So yeah, group 2, lots of discussion, and we were focusing on kind of the the retention and progression, but there were some conversations around, you know, attraction and what we do in there. So we talked a little bit about the kind of individual, you know, when you're thinking about inclusion and diversity, and then when you've got individuals, how do you take that lens across? You know, you take people individually, but how do you take that lens across everybody within the organisation? We talked a lot and shared some best practice around the kind of resource groups or the community support groups that we have within organisations. And I know that we were talking about how we connect with those community support groups and use them as a sounding board and listen and get feedback. So it's a two-way thing. So you're using that community to help decision making and thinking around things that you might take forward in the organisation. Also the structures around that, you know, one of the points that I think it was Mike made was that sometimes with those groups, they get set up and then they get a bit frustrated because actions that they put forward, they don't really come to fruition, nothing happens. And we were talking about the importance of having sponsorship and having sponsors for those resource groups as well. We talked a little bit about the kind of internal programs and developing those and how you can get those colleagues from those groups to feed in to those groups as well. I think there were some questions around kind of the retention piece as well, you know, retention metrics and surveys and feedback and how you capture feedback to retain staff in there. I was just going to bring Mike in. Sorry, Mike, because we got cut off quite quickly, and you made a couple of points really. Just around how do we make sure that our employees do feel supported, and how do we check that we're making them feel supported? So I just didn't know whether you wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, no problem. It just got me thinking, I guess. I joined Open Classrooms 3.5 months ago, something like that, and I've just been amazed. We're predominantly a French business, but we've got an incredibly diverse workforce. And, you know, we all managed to meet up in Paris last week, which wasn't the worst thing that's happened this year so far. And you know, I've been really impressed and I'm really proud of that. But I actually thought, I don't know how we assess how people are feeling. You know, on the surface, it looks okay, we've got this great diverse workforce. We are absolutely fully remote, so we do recruit people from absolutely anywhere and have people all over the world. But how do they feel, and how do other organisations actually check and sort of monitor how people are feeling, you know, and how do they ensure that's a genuine kind of response? So that was something I didn't know the answer to, and I saw a couple of answers coming in, but yeah, keen to dig deeper on that if we've got time.
Yeah, does anybody else want to share what they do in their organisation to kind of measure, do the temperature checks on how people are feeling? I don't know if anybody wanted to come in on that.
Yeah, I can, because actually it's quite a hot topic for us at the moment. We do annual culture AMP surveys, which focus on employee engagement and how people are really feeling within the business on a range of different topics, covering learning and development, covering communication, collaboration, all of these types of topics. And this, from the results of that, we then the managers are then sharing those with their individual teams so that we can delve deeper into feedback. And I think from that, we then set up different spotlight sessions. And this is something that we're constantly reviewing and building on and I guess learning from each time we do this. So those spotlight sessions to again really highlight where those key areas were that were maybe a slightly lower percentage than we would have liked, actually inviting people to have discussions about those areas, so that we can show them that, you know, what we're going to implement and what we're going to change moving forward. And that's something that's been very consistent in terms of that survey on a yearly basis.
Thank you. Thanks. I didn't know whether I was going to bring somebody else in from our group, and I know Jen had problems in and out of our group, and Jen, I don't know whether your mic's working, whether you wanted to come in. I know you've had problems with your audio. I'll keep watching your screen just to see if you're able to join. Did anybody else want to comment on that? You know, how you do the temperature checks. With City and Guilds, we do something very similar where we have an employee opinion survey as well that's done. We were doing it annually. We do it twice a year now, and we pick up on the feeling bit in the mid-year one. Oh, she's still having issues. Sorry, Jen. Did anybody else want to come in on that point that Mike's made as well?
Yeah, happy to share slightly what we do at Avanti. It's very, very similar. We have a yearly Your Voice staff survey, and then we've just finished our 6-monthly pulse check. So just going through that at the moment. It's supplemented by listening groups as well, so to try and bring to life what we're actually saying within the standardised survey. We're quite new, we've only been doing it through a year. Our intention is to amalgamate it with the inclusion side as well, so we can look at things like authenticity, ability to be yourself, break it down by demographic data as well, just to see what the differentials are between different groups within the organisation, but probably not something that's particularly rocket science or especially innovative. I suspect a lot of people around the call who run staff surveys will do it in a very similar way. We'll see. It's all about the action. At the end of the day, you can do the surveys till you're blue in the face, but you've got to put the actions in place.
I think one of the ideas that I liked, and this was the things that Cash was talking about in his main session, and Julie's actually put it in the chat around the idea, you know, when you're trying to encourage this retention of diverse groups within the organisation to make sure they stay within the business and ultimately they progress within the business. One of the things that I liked about IBM's approach is that idea of having two managers, so that, you know, the matrix management style and then your line manager style, because potentially that matrix management person could actually be that almost that coach, that mentor, that person that you go to for any issues that you may not want to discuss with your line manager. And I found, you know, the power of coaching and mentoring is transformational, I think, in terms of having honest conversations with, you know, internally to avoid people having any issues, whether they're personal issues or work issues. So I think, so I'm just wondering whether anyone in the group today, you know, has that sort of matrix management where they've almost become that coaching mentor type role for those individuals to ensure that they've got a progression plan and they progress within the organisation.
Yeah, no, I'm going to bring Michelle in, because Michelle, you talked a little bit about this, didn't you, when you talked about the mentoring program that you've got, the reverse mentoring. I just wanted if you could say a little bit more about that.
Yes, we've got a formal mentoring program for all employees, but we've also started doing some reverse mentoring. So the senior leaders in the organisation have got mentors who are very much junior to them, but also very diverse. And that's kind of now rolling out sort of further down the organisation. There's very much an encouragement around that. And that's very much just to get a different perspective. And the leaders are really finding it very insightful, but actually there's action being taken as a result of some of that feedback and that input. It's also incredibly empowering for those more junior folks in the organisation to feel that their voice is genuinely being heard, and it's been heard at the highest level in our organisation. So and actually it's something that doesn't cost anything. So if folks are worried about, you know, finance and so on, it costs not very much. You know, it's an hour or two of time, you know, perhaps once a month, once a quarter.
No, thank you. Thanks for that, Michelle. And it's interesting because within City and Guilds, we've just kicked off what we call reciprocal mentoring program as a pilot. And I suppose, I know there's lots of interventions that we're all trying. So we're talking about it from attraction, selection, recruitment and retention. And I suppose I'm just curious, just before we sort of go to close, is how are you measuring the impact of that? Or are we saying actually we're just on the journey, we haven't quite got to measuring the impact? But what would be a useful approach to measuring impact, if anybody's got anything to share on that? Michelle?
We have some formal metrics on women in leadership, and we do have data on retention, promotion, you know, new recruitment and so on, particularly around women in leadership. We haven't done that for more diverse groups because sometimes it's actually very difficult to get a handle on, particularly in the disability arena, where you've got folks who are invisible, have invisible disabilities, and people don't necessarily disclose their disability. So that's some metrics that we have around, and we also have track retention metrics, and every group within the organisation have metrics around retention generally. So
no, thank you. And I noticed that you know, people doing work on how to retain, exit interviews, you know, surveys at the end when people are moving on is also key as well. Thank you all so much. It's been such a rich discussion. I'm just trying to keep us to time. And I just wondered, before we finish off, I'm going to hand over to Julia, that's just got a short video clip to show. But I just wondered if anybody'd got any specific questions. I know there are a few in the chat, Paula, if there's anything that we can perhaps answer before we sort of move over to the end of the session. If there's any questions or queries that people have in the chat or that you want to just raise now.
I think there's just some observations really. So Mike has obviously helpfully asked about if anyone's got any tools or any tools that they use to collect data, or is it just the usual SurveyMonkey and feedback form? So if anyone's got any other ideas, that'd be good to share. And I think the mentoring program obviously is, you know, is obviously quite an interesting area for most people as well. Just before I hand back to Charmaine, we will be sending out a SurveyMonkey to everybody, just to really find out what they thought of the event, but also crucially any ideas for us to maybe continue on some of these themes and dig a little bit deeper into those themes. If you've got a view on that, we will be sending that out very soon. But yeah, I'll hand back to Charmaine, but there's no other questions.
That's lovely, thank you. And I think, yeah, you know, there's so much to learn and so much to focus on when you think about the whole journey of attraction right the way through to retention and progression. So it would be great to be able to continue these conversations on. So just to say really, thank you to all our presenters today. Abbas has had to drop off, but thank you to Cash and Tiana. It's been great having you here and having the conversation. So we just wanted to sort of share some work that we've done at City and Guilds. And so I just wanted to hand over to Julia to see if she's able to show a video that was created within City and Guilds Foundation on the back of some work that we've done around inclusion and diversity. And just to say at the end of that, it's about how you can potentially get involved and make a pledge, hopefully, if this works. So Julia, can I hand over to you just to share the video?
Yes, so am I supposed to share the video now then? Yes,
if you can, yeah.
Okay, I will try to, sorry.
Yeah, to play the video, sorry. Yeah.
I'll try to share my screen. Let's see if this is gonna work out. Share sound, let's see, nice. Share, and
you can get it to play.
Can you all see that?
Yeah, I can see it started, but I can't see anything come up on the screen just yet.
Okay, can you hear it as well?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
Imagine a workplace where everyone feels respected, valued, is able to contribute and empowered to develop and grow. Let's build a workplace where differences are respected, valued. Let's build a culture that enables everyone from diverse experiences, backgrounds, communities to be themselves and feel supported to meet their full potential and deliver their best work. Make a pledge to build inclusion and diversity in your workplace. Receive a digital credential and share it with your networks. Small steps make big changes, and it starts with you.
That was it. I hope did you all see it? So yeah, no, basically we encourage you to share. Oh my gosh, sorry.
We can hear you.
Okay, wait a minute.
So while Julie's doing that, just to finish off and say that if you have a look at the video again, because you will get the slides, if you want to make a pledge, it's very straightforward. If you want to have a chat with me or anyone here around the digital credentials and how they work and how you can then showcase your pledges across social platforms, then that's really the way to do it. But if you want to have a chat about that, then we'll keep in touch and we'll show you how it works. But I thought the video was brilliant. It's a nice end to the day, actually.
No, thank you. Thank you all, everyone, for your contributions today, and hopefully see you again on the next session.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Take care.